What is up, everybody? Welcome to Pub Sports Radio. This is the Draftkings picks and prediction show for UFC Vegas 89. We got Rose Namajunas going against Amanda Ribas in what is one of the weirder slates in a very, very long time. We have a lot of very closely lined fights. Gordo, you were talking before the show. The biggest favorite on DraftKings is 9,400 is Stephen Wynn, and on the money line, he's only minus 164. And the line just keeps getting shorter and shorter as the week goes on. People loving them some Jarno Aarons for some reason. I don't know. I've never bet the guy personally, but yeah, it's a weird slate. I feel like you can leave a ton of salary on the table, and it's a tricky one. It's definitely a tricky card for sure. But looking forward to breaking it down. I am here with Monk, Weezy, and Gordo. We'll start with you first, Monk. Are you looking forward to UFC Vegas 89?
Yeah, we were all, and myself included, kind of shitting on this card, even though always good to have fights on Saturday. What else would we do? But it is kind of actually interesting from a DraftKings perspective, just from a game theory perspective. Like we said, the widest lines are, I think at this point, is Daria, but the biggest favorite's down to minus 164. It's really getting interesting this week, so could be exciting.
It could be. It could be.
Could be.
It could. It really could. We got Weezy. Weezy, what is up? You looking forward to UFC Vegas 89? I bet you're looking forward to vacation even more, though.
Yeah, I am going on vacation starting Sunday, going to Europe for a couple of weeks. So I'm really looking forward to that. Going to a wedding as well while we're out there. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that. But this is a fun card. I'm finishing up my research right now I've got a couple more fights to write up, and there's some interesting matchups on this card. There's some bettable fights, and as far as DraftKings goes, if you've got some reads this week, it's pretty easy to find 5 fighters that you think are going to win and even win decisively just by the salaries that are available to us this week. So yeah, it's a great one to chop up. I'm looking forward to hearing what you guys have to say and talking about it with the chat.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And last but not least, we got Gordo. Gordo, it's been a while. I think you were gone the last 2 shows or the last show?
Just last show. I know you missed me, so it felt longer.
You were missed so much, it felt like 2 whole shows.
I actually got stuck behind a train, and I couldn't make it. So I'm back now.
That's my luck.
No, it was good. I got a nice little week off to relax, calm the mind, and you know what? It makes these fights more exciting, right? There's nothing like a week off and then coming back to Karl Williams being the second biggest favorite in the card and having to spell Daria Zelnikova. Those are 2 things that really get you going, when you're back off a week off. So I know I'm excited to be back here talking fights. Nothing like having these cards, all that accumulate towards the big UFC 300 in a couple of weeks. So we're slowly getting there. It's right around the corner. I'm looking forward to that, but I'm looking forward to this card too. As you guys mentioned, a lot of very closely lined fights, and I do think we have a lot of things to cover in this one. It should be a good card DFS-wise, and I hope everyone's able to cash on it.
Yep, absolutely. Before we get into it, if you guys could please do us a favor, leave a like here on the video. Subscribe to Pub Sports Radio. We go live every Wednesday, 9 o'clock Eastern time on the dot. Just kidding, not on the dot. We're typically a couple minutes late, but 9 o'clock Eastern time around that time. We got Elijah One in the building. What is up? Elijah One Dream. We got Jules
Santana, baby. Let's go.
Jules. There you go. We got some tricky names tonight. Elijah One is definitely a tricky name. It's tricked me before. And then we got Jules.
Zelnikova.
Yeah, that one is tough as well. And yep, I like to try my best in pronunciations. So, all right, guys, I say we get into it. We're going to start with the fight to target. And I am not going to kick this off because my notes aren't even freaking pulled up. But Monk, kick it off. What fight are you targeting?
All right. I think there's a couple of decent fights to target this week here. I'm gonna go with Ricardo Ramos and Julian Erosa, Juicy J himself. Some decent salaries here, 89 and 73. So we're out of that 9K range for the favorite. Always a good spot to start. Andy Rosa, the underdog, is cheap enough to be considered a big underdog, in my opinion. Erosa. I mean, he's out here, at least over his last 5. He's actually scoring well, 4.5 points a minute, 103 per win. But, guys, as you know, when he doesn't win, he is getting knocked out. We're dealing with – I'm not going to disrespect him by calling him Glass Joe, but his chin is related to Glass Joe's chin. We'll just say that. If he gets touched, I mean, he's going down. I think it's 7 times in his professional career twice, both in his last 2 losses or in his last 2 fights to Padilla and Caceres, minute 3 and minute 1.5. Meanwhile, Ricardo Ramos, not known for his KOs, does notably have 2 spinning back elbows in the UFC, so I guess we have to look out for that. But yeah, this is a spot where I'm going to play both sides. Ramos for the reason that Erosa has been killed numerous times and could happen again. When it does happen, he gives up over 100 and some points. And I'm going to take Erosa here because with a win at 7,300, if he can go off all 3 or happen to finish Ramos before then, I think he scores well and has a good chance to make the optimal. So I like both sides of this one here, between Ramos and Juicy J.
All right, yeah, I think it's a good fight to target. We got Kyle in the building. What is up, Kyle? Yeah, for me, I'm going to go with the Karl Williams Justin Tafa fight. Karl Williams, he's 9,300, which is disgusting. He's only like minus 180. But if he wins this fight, you got to imagine he's going to go out there. He's going to rack up just a ton of takedowns, a ton of control time. Probably doesn't finish Tafa, but might not need to with all the control time and takedowns he's going to rack up. And then on the flip side, you got Justin Tafa, who's very, very cheap, 6,900, who I think is very live to land a big shot, get a knockout. So I just feel like both guys have solid win conditions in this fight. Williams, wrestling-based decision. Justin Tafa live for KO in any round. Any point this fight, it's on the feet. He's live for that knockout. So I think I'm more so, I don't know, I might be like kind of split on this fight, to be honest. Tafa at this price tag is very intriguing, though, I'd say. I think there's a lot of intriguing dogs, and he's one of them. Gordo, what is your favorite fight to target this week?
Yeah, in my notes per se, there are 3 fights that I think will make or break the slate. There are 3 fights you're going to have to pick a side of, in my opinion. The first 2 you guys mentioned. The third one's another one that actually isn't projected to end inside the distance, and that's Billy Q versus Youssef Zalal. I think this is a very important fight this week, mostly because it's a Billy Q fight, and this guy fights at an extremely high pace. Now, typically, Youssef Zalal is not the best DraftKings scorer, but in my opinion, if he wants to go out there and win this fight, he's going to have to utilize his takedowns and be able to match Billy Q's pace. And if that is the case, I do think that he's able to go out there and score pretty well. Additionally, Zalal is now only, I think, plus 115 at a 7.6K salary. You are getting some value on that side, whereas I don't really have to tell you too much about Billy Q. You know his style, you know his ability to go put up big scores. Scored 141 against Benitez, 125 against Hernandez, 110 against Nelson, 131 against Colburn. Billy Q is one of those pace-style fighters that scores very, very well, and he forces his opponents into doing that as well. I think this is a very important fight, and although it's not supposed to go or end inside the distance, I do think it's one that can make or break the slate for you.
All right, and then Weezy, which fight are you targeting?
I mean, I actually have 2 that I wrote down that none of you guys even touched on. So I'll give you one of them, which is probably the obvious one. It's Cam Saaiman versus Payton Talbott. I mean, it's a Payton Talbott fight. This guy is like an absolute zombie. His forward pressure is just terrifying, and he throws a massive amount of volume. And the only way to really deal with that kind of a style, if you're Saaiman, is just to take this guy down and hold him down and just maybe work to try to grapple so that he's not going to fuck off this guy ever. So you're going to need to grapple if you're Saaiman. And if you're on that Talbot side, you know that every second that this fight is on the feet, this guy is going to be walking forward and throwing an absolute bushel full of strikes. So whichever way this one goes, I think somebody's going to be scoring a ton of points. And I think it's going to be a very high-paced fight from the word go, and I think it's going to be really fun to watch, and it's going to make for a lot of DraftKings points.
And I'm guessing the other one you wrote down was the Padilla-Pajuelo fight?
Yeah, because Pajuelo's crazy.
Yeah, he is.
I mean, that guy fights at like his hair is on fire, and he just gets in people's faces and does the exact same thing, really, that Payton Talbott does, that Billy Quarantillo does, which is just drown their opponents in volume. So I think there are a lot of fights to target on this week's card.
Absolutely. And we'll go now to our fights to fade. And we'll start with you, Monk. Monk, which fight are you fading this week?
Yeah, not as many on my list for fights to fade as there are fights to target. I'm going to go with the first fight of the night. I know we generally like to target that, especially when it's between 2 big boys like we got here. The most English-looking heavyweight ever, Mick Parkin, taking on Muhammad Usman here. Both guys undefeated in the UFC. Can you believe it? But neither one ever scoring more than who scored the most. I think it was Usman. It was actually in a finish against Zach Paunga, scored 85. neither gentleman, Parkin or Usman, has scored close to that. Well, over that, I should say, in any of their fights. So I'm thinking this one probably goes to decision. These two are probably better than me and maybe a lot of people were originally giving them credit for, but I don't think they're like super. I just think they're not scrubs, basically. I was on the Usman side pretty heavy in my mind when I started looking at this card, but I just don't know, man. If this goes to decision, it could be greasy, could be a split, maybe even 29-28 or some kind of split. So winner probably scores 75-85, and I'm looking to fade that. Even though the salaries are relatively low at 84 and 78, I think they're going to need a little more than 10-11x to pay off this week. So slight fade on the Parkin Usman opening bout.
Yeah, what a terrible fight. Gordo, which fight are you fading this week?
Fair. You know what? Like Monk mentioned, I think you can make a case for every single fighter on the slate because there are so many close bouts. However, the one that stands out to me to fade is going to be Stephen Nguyen versus Jarno Aarons. It is the highest paid or most expensive fighter on the entire slate. And as alluded to in the intro, he's $9,400, but minus 164 in the money line. Just off of that, you have yourselves a horrible statistical matchup at 9.4K. It does not seem like it's a good one or a good option to pay up to. At the same time of things, this matchup is plus 115 inside the distance. It is expected to go all 15 minutes. And you look in the way that Jarno Aarons has fought so far in the UFC, he's been content to be low volume. He has been content to have a slow pace fight. And when you have a guy like that who's willing to slow down the fight and really coast to a decision loss, it doesn't really give me too much faith in the guy like Nguyen at 9.4K to go out there and live off his salary. You add in the fact that Nguyen is a primary striker, and although he has the ability to land a ton of strikes, not every fighter is going to be AJ Cunningham in front of him. So most fighters are going to have defense. Most fighters are going to want to fight at a slower pace. And because of that, I don't think he really lives up to that salary. I'd much rather have many other fighter in this price range. It is a fight that could score well. I just think at a very low percentage of the time.
All right, and I see a couple comments or questions in the chat. We'll get to those shortly, guys. Weezy, which fight are you fading this week?
Yeah, I had written down the curtain jerker in Usman Parkin, but another one that I'll give you is Shahbazyan versus Dobson. Now, Edmen Shahbazyan is averaging 2.97 DraftKings points per minute, and AJ Dobson's averaging about 2.6. They're not massive DraftKings scorers. I could see either one of these guys maybe trying to work some takedowns in here, especially Dobson, because we've seen Edmen just really struggle with wrestlers. But that's not Dobson's game. He's not this phenomenal wrestler that's going to go out there and get 8 takedowns. And outside of that, a guy like Dobson, I haven't even seen him get hit clean yet. I mean, like, this guy has been in no trouble yet in the UFC. So I kind of feel like when I was looking at this fight before I taped it, I liked the under because both of these guys are finishers. Both of these guys have been finished in the past. But as far as Shahbazyan, I think he's gonna probably win this one by decision. So if he's not getting a lot of takedowns and not landing a lot of strikes, then I just think he's not a great option to pay up for. And then as far as Dobson goes, I think he's probably going to lose this fight and not score a lot of points. So I think it's another good fight to stay away from. I thought it would finish inside the distance before I looked at the tape. And now that I've watched the tape, I kind of feel like it's going to go the full 15. And if it does that, I think it's a safe one to avoid.
Yeah, I'm picking it to go the distance. I'm picking a lot of fights to go the distance. The fight I'll be fading is going to be Trey Ogden, Kurt Holobaugh. If anything, I'm playing Holobaugh. It's the Trey Ogden fight. I mean, he's just terrible on DraftKings. I mean, even the Moda fight where he dominated that fight, he only scored 53, and it was a no contest with the submission thing. Like, if that went to decision, he would have scored only like 83. He scored 64 against Zellhuber in a win as well. So, yeah, I feel like Ogden's going to try his best to not engage, to not fight, to stay on the outside, to do a lot of nothing, still win. And it's smart. Don't get me wrong, but it kind of reminds me like a Kyle Nelson where he just slows the fights down so bad to a snail's pace. That's terrible. So I'll be fading the Trey Ogden fight. If anything, like I said, some Holobaugh, but not any Trey Ogden. All right, moving on to the fight to fade. I'll kick this one off as well. I'm going to go with Stephen Nguyen. I think Gordo talked about this one. 9,400. He's only minus 164 on the money line. Probably the worst 9,400 fighter in history. Like, I can't ever remember something this bad. But yeah, I mean, I'm actually picking him to win. It's just I don't think he has much finishing upside. I think Aarons is very tough. I don't think he has much, if any, grappling upside here. I guess he has some volume, but at 9,400, I don't really want to be paying for some volume. So it's a pretty easy fade there. Aaron's at 9,400. Monk, which fighter are you fading for this week?
Yeah, Stephen Wynn is number one. Man, I already talked about Mick Parkin. He's also on here. I'll briefly just touch on a slight fade on Payton Talbott here. I know he's only 8,300, so it's not really a salary I'm looking to fade necessarily, but in his fight against Nick Aguirre, he only walked away with that. I mean, he got a finish in the 11th minute, and he only walked away with 68 points. Landed only 28 strikes, only 2.5 per minute. So I'm looking for, you would think lots of, some takedowns and some decent control time. He did have 31% control time, but that means he didn't do much on the ground as far as striking or racking up DraftKings points. And he was the one that got taken down twice in that fight. So did end up finding the finish, but I am a little nervous about his score, especially against a guy who a lot of people are calling a fraud. I mean, that word gets thrown around way too much these days, but I happen to like the guy. I like him as a prospect. And Cameron Saaiman, where's his number here? Only gave up 90 when he lost, and only gives up 3 points per minute overall. So nothing spectacular. But he's not giving up, as many as like Kurt Holobaugh is or Billy Quarantillo generally is throughout his career. So I do kind of want to see Payton Talbott get it done with a better score than 68 points in 11 minutes and more than 2.5 strikes per minute before I'm comfortable rostering him. Again, 8,300, not necessarily looking to fade that salary, but like I said, I want to see it first.
All right, Gordo, which fighter are you fading this week?
Oh, yeah, we're actually going to switch on this one. I already talked about Nguyen, and you did as well. I'm not really playing Trey Ogden 8.5K. I do think the guy himself is, someone who isn't really DFS oriented. He's a guy who's willing to slow down the fight, and he doesn't really excel in any which area. Kurt Holobaugh will bring a fight to him, but Trey Ogden is content to pitter-patter from the outside, try to neutralize the fight style, and in doing so, can score very, very well. Very poorly, sorry. Only scored 64 points against El Hierro to win there. He absolutely dominated Mata in a way I don't think he'll do Holobaugh, and he would have only scored, 83, 89 points in that win. I do think that he's a fighter content to fight at a low pace at 8.5K. I would much rather have many more options on the slate.
And last but not least, Weezy, which fighter are you fading?
This week it's going to be Andre Lima. The guy's a relative unknown, and he does prefer to stand and bang from what we've seen of him. And when you look at Lima's record, you can't find a lot of tape on his MMA fights, but what you see are a lot of kickboxing, Muay Thai fights. So, the guy's got a striking base. But his opponent, De Silva, is younger. He trains at a better camp at Shootbox Joe Emilio. He's fought the better brand of competition, fighting in Jungle Fight as opposed to Spartacus MMA. And he mixes in the wrestling. So not only do I think that he scores low, Andre Lima, that is, because of how he fights, which is just being primarily a striker, but I think he probably loses this fight. So I think there's way too much risk on his side here this week at 9,000.
All right. We'll move on to our favorite dog here. There's literally, you can make a case for every single dog on this card. All 13 dogs, I think, are live. Monk, which one is your favorite?
Yeah, I'll just go with the newcomer, the opposite of the guy that Weezy just said that he was going to fade. I agree, and so I'm going to be playing some of Igor Severino here at 7,200. I mean, newcomer versus newcomer, that's one thing, but when one guy is out here throwing 600 strikes and landed knockdowns and takedowns, this dude would have scored 151 points in his Dana White Contender Series fight, which obviously we're throwing that out the window. I don't really mean it as a real comparison. It is a DWCS fight, but still, that shows potential. It shows huge volume, whether it's on the feet or getting the fight to the ground, and that's exactly the kind of person I want to play as far as DraftKings goes. Where did he go? He only went 7.5 minutes, so I am interested to see what happens if this fight gets extended. But I'm willing to throw my chips in here on Igor Severino, one of my favorite underdogs. Not really into playing unknown guys as far as the UFC goes most of the time, but I think it's worth it here at 7,200. I'll take a stab.
All right, Gordo, who is your favorite dog this week?
Yeah, with so many underdogs on this card that are live, I didn't expect Monk to agree with me in the very first one. I also have Igor Severino. Let me pivot to a riskier option, but one of these underdogs who I do think has a very, very high ceiling. That is someone we've already talked about, Juicy J. Julian Erosa, 7.3K for me. And his skill set's a bit confusing because he is a guy who I think has a ton of talent. Yes, of course, the chin is a red flag. That the durability is definitely concerning, and he could be bonked and score 4 points as he has a couple times before. But truth be told, I do think he's a powerful guy. I do think he has a bunch of skills, and his volume, his forward pressure, and his really overall offensive skill set is one to really be a fan of at 7.3K. He has the ability to go out there, not only land a ton of strikes, but also compete on the ground, utilize that long reach and those long libs, and also carry a lot of power. I do think he has finishing upside in this matchup. And although he is a risky play, he is someone with a lot of upside against a guy in Ramos who has also had his own struggles. I know that there are risks while backing Julian Erosa. Maybe there'll be another spinning elbow coming our way. But until I see that shin crack one more time, I will take my shot with some high ceiling upside on Julian Erosa.
Yeah, I actually wrote down Igor da Silva as well. So we all three did.
Wow.
Yeah. So I'll give a different one. I'll go with somebody that's a slight dog. It's Cody Gibson, 8,000. I'm just not a big fan of Miles Johns. Miles Johns coming in here, I think on a couple weeks' notice. I already questioned the cardio. And, in terms of output, I think that's going to be heavily in favor of Gibson. I think he might start a little bit slow, but as the fight goes on, I think he could potentially wear on Johns and finish him late. So don't mind Gibson at 8,000. But yeah, I had Da Silva as well. 7,200 just seems way too cheap. Weezy, who is your favorite dog this week?
Have we talked about Igor da Silva yet?
No.
Yeah, I like.
We talked about Igor Serviano though.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
So I'll go with Kurt Holobaugh. I guess he's going to be in my cash lineup this week. Kurt's a high volume striker. The guy is landing 9.1 distance strikes per minute spent at distance, and he's attempting 24, and that's over a 21.5-minute sample size. So it's not like it's this skewed, very small sample size where he's just acting like he's on bath salts for like 4 minutes. This guy is clearly on some kind of stimulants, and it's been in all of his fights. So Holobaugh, super high output. Another thing that you got to like here is that Trey Ogden couldn't finish a glass of water unless, of course, you're Nick Moda, and in which case the referee is like, dude, Trey's not supposed to fight anyone. So they just actually took that finish right away from him. So I feel like Holobaugh is a guy that is probably going to last the full 15 minutes here at the bare minimum at 7,700. And the guy is scoring, according to my notes, 3.85 DraftKings points per minute while he's in there. So high pace, should get 15 minutes out of him. Holobaugh has finished 17 of his 20 pro wins for an 85% pro finish rate. And his best submission is a guillotine. And guess who gets guillotined all the damn time? Trey Ogden. He even got guillotined twice by the same guy. So I think there's a lot of things on the Holobaugh side here that makes him an interesting option at 7,700 this week.
Yep, I know this is a DraftKings show, but I was looking at the Holobaugh finish only. I remember me and you, Weezy, got good plus money on it against Hubbard.
Yeah.
This time it's not good plus money. I think it's like minus 140, which honestly still probably playable. Like you said, Ogden doesn't really he's not finishing anybody ever.
Yeah, he did have that arm triangle. I mean, the poor guy. I hope he got his win bonus for that because that was pathetic.
No, what was that? Who was the rep there? Was it probably Tyone, right?
Beltran? I think was it Beltran?
Oh wow!
But I'm not positive. It might have been Tyone.
Tyone always is involved in shenanigans, so just thought it might have been him. All right. So we did the favorite dog. I think there's a lot of options. Let's move on now to the prize picks section, and we will start with Monk. What do you got for prize picks this week?
I got a couple. I'm gonna go with man, this is risky. I went risky last week and it really bit me. Thanks, Oven St. Preux. I'm gonna go Karl Williams under 2.5 takedowns. I think if he is going to land takedowns, I think he lands one per round of as long as this fight goes. Because Tafa's not getting up. Tafa's not reversing position. Karl Williams hopefully will land some ground and pound or go for some kind of finish. And I think that happens in probably round 1 or 2. I'd be not surprised if this goes to all 3. Tafa has been to decision 3 times. Lastly was against Jared Vandera back in 2021. But since then, he's had approximately 3.5 minutes worth of fight time in 4 UFC fights. So Karl Williams has gone to decision in 2 of them. But, I mean, Tafa's not going to do anything if he gets on the ground. So give me the under for 2.5 takedowns. I think Williams probably lands 2. Probably gets a second round finish is kind of what I'm thinking.
All right. For me, I'm gonna pick on Trey Ogden here, I guess. Again, I'm going with Trey Ogden less than 79.5 fantasy score. I mean, you can give an extra 2 rounds. I don't think he's hitting this. He just doesn't do anything. He's so low volume. He's probably not going to wrestle. If he does, like Weezy said, he's probably getting guillotined. He's just going to want to stick on the outside and just slow the fight down as much as possible, make it unbearable to watch. So yeah, 79.5. It's too high for me. It's too high for me. So taking less there. Gordo, what do you like from a Prize Picks perspective?
Yeah, a few good options you guys mentioned already. I'm going to pick on someone I have not already, and that is going to be. Actually, no. Let's go positive. I actually like this play a bit more. We're gonna take an over here. That's more my style. Let's go Miles Johns over 49.5 significant strikes. And I know what you guys might be saying. Miles Johns, the volume machine. No, not really. He's not a guy who goes out there, lands a ton of shots. It's more so the Cody Gibson side. Cody Gibson's a guy who fights at a very high pace. He's a guy who is willing to eat a few shots. He actually absorbs 4.73 strikes per minute. And in a fight that's fought at such a high pace like that, one where you're gonna have the forward pressure of Cody Gibson looking to walk down a guy, Miles Johns, I do think there is going to over 50 strikes landed. We all have that fresh memory of Brad Katona versus Cody Gibson in our mind. Over 140 strikes landed for both guys. A fight. They're only looking for a third of that number here. And although Miles Johns isn't the same volume machine, he is a guy who still doesn't have the opportunity to land at will against a poor defensive striker in Gibson. I do think Gibson breaks the pace. Give me over 49.5 significant strikes.
All right, and then Weezy, what do you like for Prize Picks?
I would give you Payton Talbott over 74.5 significant strikes this week. I mean, it's a big number to try to get more than, but I don't see Saaiman being this big offensive wrestler. And Payton Talbott is landing just in the small sample size that we saw in his UFC debut against Aguirre. He's landing 6.73 strikes per minute at distance. But when you go and you look at the Reyes Cortez Jr. fight where he's landing 145 significant strikes, I see this fight being a lot closer to that fight than the Aguirre fight where Aguirre was just really forcing the grappling. That's not really how Cam Saaiman fights. I mean, Cam Saaiman prefers to stay standing. And frankly, I think he might be landing the bigger shots here because Payton's going to be coming to him, and Payton is very hittable at distance. So, but Payton's also very durable, so I think this fight's going to go over a round and a half, probably even over 2.5 rounds. And I think Payton's going to just flood this dude in volume, and I think he might be over 75 significant strikes after the second round here.
Yeah, I actually have that one written down as well. It's a lot, but it's a Payton Talbot fight. All right, let's move on now to our favorite GPP play. Weezy, will stick with you. What are you liking?
GPP this week, I'm going to give you guys Fernando Padilla. I mean, this fight is going to be a war, but Padilla has way too many advantages to ignore here. I think Padilla gets the win. He has finish upside, and when you combine that with the fact that Pajuelo has no defense whatsoever, you have all the makings of a ding-dong Donnybrook of a fight that should be high-scoring and fun to watch. I like Padilla to score big this week. I think he might even surprise people and get this dude out of there right away in the first round. I think there's big-time submission upside for Padilla. He's got a ton of wins by submission in his career. And I also think that he's the much cleaner and more accurate boxer, and he's going to have something like a 6 or 7 inch reach advantage here. He's way more experienced, and he's fought the way better brand of competition as well. In addition to that, you got Pajuelo making his UFC debut. So I think there's a lot of things in Padilla's favor here, and I think he's going to surprise people, get an early finish, and score a ton of points this week.
All right, yeah, I think that's a great fight to target. We mentioned a little bit. Another fight we mentioned that should be targeted is that Ramos Arosa fight, and I like Ramos here. 8,900. It's just more of a fade on the durability of Julian Arosa. I mean, this is a guy who's gotten knocked out 7 times at featherweight, which is just very, very concerning. He's coming off of back-to-back knockout losses. He's only getting older. He's only taking more damage. His chin's always been a concern. He's very hittable, sub 50% striking defense. So, yeah, I think it's not going to take much for Ramos to go out there and land a big shot and knock him out. Is Julian Rose alive? Yes, I think he's alive in many fights. He's a live dog that'll fight for your money, but just terrible durability. I think Ramos is live here for a knockout. But yeah, I like Padilla as well, Weezy. I think it's a good call. Gordo, what do you like for a GBP play this week?
Yeah, a few high ceiling options. I've talked about Billy Q enough, so let's talk about another option up here. Another risky one. Karl Williams, 9.3K. It's never a fun time to want to trust a guy who doesn't finish fights at heavyweight at a high clip, but he does have an opponent in front of him who he will have some huge grappling success over. We have seen Karl Williams go out there and land 8 takedowns in a fight before. He has that capability. He scored 130 in the process, and now he's facing a guy who, yes, has a lot of power, but is limited to that, does not have good minute winning ability, does not have a good ability to fight off his back, and can't really fend off the takedowns that well. I think Karl Williams is going to have a clear path to victory, and in doing so, has a very, very high ceiling. Now, GBP play, because he could very well get bonked in a minute. He could just get KO'd by some Samoan power, and I could be sitting here not too happy about it. But truth be told, I do think Williams' grappling path to victory has a very high ceiling for him, and I will be playing in the GPP. Uh-oh.
Bam, 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 bam.
No, I didn't say anything. I wasn't even saying anything. I was just waiting for you to finish up. Monk, what is your favorite GBP play?
Practicing your ventriloquism, I see. It's looking pretty good. Yeah, I was going to get risky, but you guys named all three, and I'll just echo what Gordo said, and I touched on it earlier. Karl Williams here. I really like him at 9,300. I like him much more than the guy at 9,400 and Stephen Wynn. He has scored 130 points in his debut fight in a 3-round decision. We often don't see high scores of that caliber in decision fights. It's rare. It's not that we don't often see it, but yeah, I only scored 71 against Chase Sherman, but I'm thinking he scores better than that here. And at 9,300, I'm willing to take a risk of him dodging the one weapon that Tafa has. So give me Karl Williams as a good GPP play.
All right, sounds good to me, Monk. We'll move on to our favorite cash play. Weezy, what do you got for cash this week?
Cash for me is going to be Thug Rose Namajunas, 5-round fight. I like her quite a bit to win this fight. She should score plenty against Ribas, who's in high volume fights. And with 5 rounds to play with and a high win probability that's approaching about 70% right now, I think she's a great cash play this week against someone who isn't finishing someone as high level as Rose. I think her floor in this fight's around 45 points, and her upside is definitely triple digits, as Ribas has been finished by KO in 3 of her 4 losses. So not only do you have the full 5 rounds to work with here and potentially 25 minutes if this does go to decision, but if Rose gets a finish, she's going to definitely pay off her salary. So I think she's a solid option.
Yeah, I went with Rose as well. She's my most confident pick on the card, which is not saying much because I'm not confident in really anybody. And even Rose, I'm not really that confident in her, but she was the biggest favorite on the card. I mean, she was approaching minus 300, I think, like yesterday. I was like, what's going on? Is Ribas fighting blindfolded? The line has come back down. She's now minus 205, which I think is much more appropriate. But yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of reasons to like Rose. 25 minutes to work with. I think she has the much better durability. She's fought and beaten the much better competition. I think she's better pretty much everywhere. So yeah, give me Rose Namajunas. I think she's probably my safest play on the board, which is not saying much this week for me. Gordo, who you like for cash?
Yeah, I got to go Rose as well. There's not many cash options I like in the slate here, but she is someone who, like you mentioned, a high floor, very durable, one of the best female fighters you've ever seen, as well as being at one point the biggest favorite on the card. Don't have much more to add. Liking Rose in cash.
All right, and then Monk, who you liking in cash?
Obviously, Rose was number 1 on my list as well. I'll go with Fernando Padilla. I think 87 or 89, 8,700. I think that's a good spot here. Even in that loss against Gordo's neighbor Kyle Nelson, still landed 4.8 strikes per minute in that fight. Didn't do much else. So he's gonna need to find a finish probably to get a good score, but he has done that before against someone else on this card, Julian Arosa. So let's hope what Weezy said about Pajuelo is accurate, as I agree with those sentiments. I also don't mind Edmen Shahbazyan as a sneaky little cash play too. I think he should be able to get it done against Dobson, and Dobson has given up a huge score as well. So there you go.
All right, there we go. Let's keep on moving on to our favorite value play. We'll start with you, Gordo. Who you liking for some value this week?
Yeah, for me, it's Cody Gibson for some value, $8,000. I kind of mentioned the Miles John sign in my prize pick side of things, but I do think Cody Gibson fights at a very high pace. I do think he is someone who's going to be going forward, has a full camp for this one, and is a pretty, let's say, good DraftKings target because he does fight at a very high pace. He's going to go forward. He is going to have multiple advantages in this spot, including cardio, including volume. And I do think at $8,000, he's priced as an underdog, although I don't really think he should be in this spot. I think he has the capability to go out there and put up a very high score in the process. Scored 66 points last time in a loss, and as well as having a 126-point win on his record. The guy has some decent UFC DraftKings success in the past. And I do think at this spot here, at $8,000, he could look like a hindsight favorite if he's able to get off on his game plan and land as many strikes as we've seen him do in the past. Should be a fun, high-paced bout, and for that reason, I'm taking Cody Gibson.
I like it. Weezy, who are you liking for some value this week?
Value play for me this week is Payton Talbott. I mean, at 8,300, he's the definition of value. He attempts around 15 distance strikes per minute, and he will constantly be pressuring and throwing a ton of volume, putting it on his opponents, and his chin has shown it can be trusted. High volume fighter, favored to win with late finish upside. I love Payton Talbott in this spot. And I mean, if you, like I say, if you include that Reyes Cortez performance on Dana White's Contender Series, this guy's like putting up Quarantillo numbers in the distance striking and just significant striking realms. So I think you just don't ignore that fight in particular. Whoever wins that fight is going to put up a ton of fights or a ton of points at either 83 or 7,900 this week. But I'm on the Talbot side. I think he's going to get the job done.
All right. For me, for some value, I'm just going to go with Justin Tafa, 6,900. Like, he's so cheap, and I think this fight is a lot closer than this line does indicate. Like, Tafa can knock this guy out in any round. It's not going to take long on the feed. Did not like how Karl Williams looked against Chase Sherman. Really struggled to get the fight down to the mat. See, I think Tafa's super live. I'm not picking him outright to win, but a knockout at 6,900 would not shock me. So you give me Tafa for some value. And then Monk, who are you liking for value this week?
Love those picks. I'll go with I'll switch it up. Montserrat Rendon at 7,400. Just because Zelenzniakova is $8,800 for a newcomer, and I want to see what she's going to bring to the table before I want to throw 8,800 salary on her. Rendon, not the most impressive, only 6 pro fights, so 3 less than Daria, but she looked all right against Vidal. Ended up 4.6 strikes a minute, got 4 landed on her. And landed 3 takedowns as well, 33% control time. So the numbers are okay, nothing special. But I'm willing to throw a risk out here on Rendon for a little bit of value at 7,400.
All right, we got our value plays in. Last but not least is the dart throw. Here's your guys' thoughts on the dart throw this week. We'll start with you, Weezy. Is there a dart throw that's sticking out?
It's Jarno Aarons for sure. People are like Aarons is terrible. And
he's terrible.
Yes, he is terrible, Brady. But the reason that he's terrible is because when he gets taken down, he shows no urgency to get back up, and he'll just sit there on his back for the whole round and lose you rounds. His opponent will bank rounds, win decisions against him. How many takedowns has Stephen Wynn shot in 3 Dana White Contender Series fights? Any of you guys know?
0.
Exactly 0. So what you're getting here is a Dutch kickboxer against a kid from Fortis MMA, and this Dutch kickboxer is very tall and long for the division. He's got solid kicks. He's not very high volume, and that's probably where Wynn actually wins the minutes, but he could win this fight, and it's evidenced by the line movement that we've seen, where Wynn was one of the bigger favorites earlier in the week, and now you see a lot of money coming in on Aarons. I think he's live to win this fight. And if you punt with him and he gets a win, it's going to put you in a situation where if you pick the right favorites, you can get 6 winners in your lineup, cash on a cash lineup, and potentially even be optimal.
All right, Jarno Aarons for the dart throw for Weezy. Monk, who you like for a dart throw?
Dart throw will go Justin Tafa for obvious reasons. He's a one-shot round 1 finisher, done it several times in the UFC. All he needs is that one to find it. Even when we've counted him out before, he's found it. And at 6,900, of course, I'm going to take a shot at that salary for a round 1 finisher. So for those obvious reasons, give me Justin Tafa for dart throw.
Gordo, who you like for a dart throw?
Yeah, the obvious answer here is Justin Tafa, but the stupid one, which I'll give, is Montserrat Rendon, 7.4K. I think that she is someone with a path to victory on the ground. I'm not the biggest fan of the ground game of Zed here. I don't think she's what is it, Zelenikova? Yeah, actually, that wasn't that bad.
Lesniakova.
Oh, okay. I need to add a little bit of flair
It's a
to
lot
it.
of syllables, dude. Just call her Z.
I had to double check like 8 times when I'm timestamping my video earlier. I don't know how to spell that. I don't know. Who knows? But the length of the name is just as long on her back. She is someone who I do think can be taken down, has holes in her game. I do think that although Rendon is someone who I don't think is that good in general, I do think she's the better grappler of the two. And I do think her path to victory relies on ground success. Now, does it happen all the time? No, but a dart throw is someone who is going to be low owned and have good upside. And I do think a path to victory for Rendon comes at low ownership with high grappling ceiling. Not the prettiest thing, but it's a decent dart throw.
Yeah, I mean, I could see it. The path could be there. I'm gonna give a silly one as well. It's AJ Dobson, 7,100. I don't think he's that great. I don't think he's winning this fight. It's more so of like we've seen Shahbazyan crumble just so many times that maybe he's able to crumble Shahbazyan. Like as the fight goes on, Shahbazyan seems to really slow down. We've seen him finished a lot later in the fight. So if Dobson comes in here with the path to victory of getting the fight down to the mat, maybe he's able to stop Shahbazyan late there. But yeah, I think Tafa is probably the obvious start there here. All right. What we're going to do now is go over our lineups and scores from last week.
Nope.
We're not doing that?
No. I was on vacation. Doesn't count.
Yeah, I don't think we made lineups last week.
Yeah, you're right.
Whatever lineup you read of mine wasn't my lineup. I don't know who put it in for me, but I am gonna have a word with him.
The KGB got involved here and switched all our lineups.
Yeah, it was wild last week. Oh, but we got to talk about it. All right, so last week it was very bad. Let's start with 4th place. We have Weezy, which Weezy you did not put in this lineup. So I don't know whoever did.
I don't know who put that lineup in.
Whoever did a very poor job, and they started it with Kennedy and Nzechukwu, who got 42. They did get Mike Davis, who did very well, got 91. Isaac Dalgarian, who did very well in a loss, 64, probably should have scored 94. Corey McKenna, 9. Angelusa, 9. And then Brian Barberena, 7. Weezy scored 225.7. In 3rd place was Monk. Thiago Moises, 92. Mike Davis, 91. Dalgarian, 64. Tuivasa, 6. Lusa, 9. And Barberena, 7. 273 for Monk. And then 2nd place was Gordo. Kennedy, 42. Battle, 18. Dalgarian, 64. Tuivasa, 6. Chandler, 84. Danny Silva, 80. Gordo scored 297.09. And then 1st place myself, Kennedy, 42. Filio, 113. Dalgarian, 64. Tuivasa, 6. Angelusa, 9. Danny Silva, 80. I scored 317.67. I think that's probably our worst week.
Whoa, 317 and we won. Boy. God.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think it could any worse than that. The no contest for the battle fight certainly didn't help, but still. All right, current standings, we are now 9 cards in. In 4th, we got Monk with 3,251. Weezy with 3,404. Gordo with 3,674. Myself with 3,786. I'm in 1st. Gordo in 2nd, behind 111. Weezy in 3rd, behind 381. And then Monk in 4th, behind 535 points. So, yeah, we're all fairly close thus far. 9 cards in. All right, now we're going to get to our lineups for this week. And by the way, if you guys have any questions in the chat, I did star 2 of them. Be sure to type them in. We'll get to them after we give our lineups for this week. But we'll start with Uncle Weezy. Uncle Weezy, what is your lineup for this week?
Yeah, I mean, there's one guy that I got a lot of faith that he's going to wind up blasting me in the ass this week and really screwing up my lineup. But this is what I'm going with, and I feel pretty good about it. Up top, Thug Rose. Number 2, the guy I do think is going to wind up blasting your poor Uncle Weezy in the ass and screwing me over this week, and that's Ricardo Ramos. But, I mean, Erosa just gets knocked out like it's his job. Fernando Padilla, Payton Talbott, Kurt Holobaugh, and everybody's favorite underdog, Igor da Silva Severino.
That's crazy, man. We have the same lineup.
It's the best lineup this week, dude. It's because great minds think alike, and it's because that lineup's going to score a ton of points.
Yeah, I do have a backup lineup though, so I'll let you have it. I have a lineup that's very similar. I'm going Rose, Namajunas, Fernando Padilla as well. Did you say you had? No. So I'm going Rose, Padilla, Severano, De Silva, Talbot, and then just the changes here is going to be Billy Q over Ramos, and then Gibson over Holobaugh.
Yep. That was
Gordo.
my first lineup.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
It was.
There we go. And Silent saying we need some Billy Q. There you go. I put him in my
Yeah.
lineup there, my backup lineup. Gordo, what do you got for this week?
That change made you very close to me because I also have Billy Q, Igor Severino, Rose Namajunas, and Cody Gibson. My difference here is I also have the one, the only Karl Williams and Julian Arosa going for a bit of a riskier play here.
Okay. And then Monk, what do you got for this week?
I'll go Karl Williams, Rose Namajunas, Fernando Padilla, Billy Q, Igor Severino, and we'll stack the main event. Throw Amanda Ribas in there as well.
All right, the old stack. The old
stack.
All right. Let's get to some questions, and then we'll do our quick picks, and then we will head out of here. What do you guys think of the under 2.5 for the Steven Wynn fight? The under 2.5 rounds is currently sitting at plus 145, plus 150. Any thoughts on that, guys? Any have an interest in an under?
Not.
I think it's kind of a sneaky underplay. I think both guys got power. Both guys got a little bit of pop. Wynn's got some underrated power in my opinion. So I think everybody's kind of going one way here. And if you're that type of cat that likes to zig while everyone else is zagging, I think the under 2.5 isn't a bad look this week.
Yeah, I think if we're playing numbers, it has some possibility, but you could also be sitting there yelling at your TV for Jarno Aarons to do something, which sometimes isn't always the case.
That's the scary part.
I think it probably goes the distance. I'm not betting that fight, though. I'm not betting any fight, actually. I have 0 bets thus far on this card. Kyle saying, who lands the most significant strikes on this card? I think it could be like Talbot, Billy Q. I think there might be.
I think it's Rose.
Rose.
She landed 4 strikes a minute against Fioro, and now we got 25 minutes to work with. So that's triple digits right there. Who else was I looking at?
Billy Q.
Yeah, Billy Q.
Always in play.
Yep.
Who else?
Payton Talbot.
Yeah.
Talbot. Yeah, Talbot.
Yeah, those would be like the 3. All right. Any other questions here? OSP champ.
Yes.
Man, he looked like a future champ, man. And this kid has some serious upside.
In the 3rd round, I was this kid. I was laughing the whole. I'm just like, oh my, is this happening right now? You just like popping him. Ridiculous.
Yeah. I had Kennedy round 3. I was waiting for OSP to like slow down and Kennedy to get it going, but it just never happened. It's crazy. All right. Okay. So now we'll do our quick picks, and then we will head out of here, guys. We'll start with you, Monk. Prediction round method.
So many decisions this week. Top to bottom, we'll go Thug Rose decision, Karl Williams KO2, Shahbazyan KO2, taking a risk there, and then the rest is pretty chalk. Saaiman decision, Quarantillo decision, Padilla decision, Ogden decision. We're going to go Erosa sub 3 with a little Darce action here. We'll go Miles Johns decision, Wynn decision, Rendon decision, Lima decision, and Usman decision.
So how many finishes?
3 finishes.
Dang, I have 4.
And I forced it. I forced it with Shahbazyan.
Holy crap. Weezy, what are your quick picks for this week?
We'll go Thug Rose 3rd round KO. We'll go Karl Williams by decision. Edmen Shahbazyan by decision. Payton Talbot 3rd round knockout. Billy Q by decision. Fernando Padilla by 1st round knockout. Then Holobaugh Ogden, I fucking don't know. I will say Kurt Holobaugh by submission in round number 1. Ricardo Ramos, first round KO. I'll go with Miles John's decision. Win decision. Zalesniakova decision. De Silva decision. And Parkin by decision.
So how many finishes was that?
I don't know, dude. I was reading off of my show notes, which I'm doing later on because I don't have it on my Tapology yet.
All right.
I said I meant Severino. I said Lima decision. I'm changing that officially to Severino.
Okay. For me, I'm going with Rose decision, Williams decision, Edmen decision, Talbott decision, Quarantillo decision, Padilla KO 2, Holobaugh sub 2, Ramos KO 1, Gibson KO 3, Win decision, Zelnikova decision, De Silva decision, and then Parkin decision. Gordo, what do you got for this week?
Yeah, we're going to take Rose by decision. Karl Williams KO 2 ground and pound. Edmen Shahbazyan decision. Payton Talbott decision. Billy Quarantillo decision. Fernando Padilla decision. Trey Ogden decision. Julian Arosa KO 2. Cody Gibson round 3 KO. Steve Nguyen decision. Zaria Zelnikova decision. Igor Severino decision. And Mick Parkin decision.
Let's go. What one hell of a card this coming weekend. We're going to kick it around. Monk, what do you got going on for the content this week?
As usual, Monk and Lou's happy hour tomorrow night. We're going to go over this this banger, see if Lou's got any bets on it. It might be few and far between, but could be a bunch of yam bags, it turns out. So tune into that one. And that's going to be it for me this week. Weezy, are you here next week or do you start your vacation?
I am in Europe next week and the week after, pimping my way through France and Italy.
Oh, that's fucking awesome. Well, enjoy your vacation. Be safe, and yeah, we'll try to hold it down here with all the blood that will be, doing stuff. And I don't even want to say it. I want you to say it.
He'll say it. Yeah, guys, this card is starting at 7 o'clock. Like, I'm gonna fall asleep during like the
7 Eastern. Like it's a pay-per-view. Oh,
yeah, and this is not a pay-per-view. I can assure you. I can assure you that.
That's terrible news.
Holy crap! Yeah, so late start. It is what it is. Weezy, what do you got for some content? You're going live in about an hour and 4 minutes, I see.
Yeah, 1 hour, 4 minutes. We're doing just the tip with Uncle Weezy. I was a little bit behind this week because I was visiting my dad in Florida last weekend. It was away for 4 days. So spent some time with the fam and stuff like that. Got me a little bit behind on my research. So check me out on Uncle Weezy's YouTube channel. 1 hour from now, we're going to break down all 13 of these fights on this card. I'll give you a dog pick. Finish with Uncle Weezy's ass shaving of the week. Show you my track bets thus far. And then the only thing left to do after that is to stack cash tickets like flapjacks for UFC Vegas 89 and bathe in the blood of our vanquished Draftkings enemies. Let's go.
Let's do it. Let's do it. Gordo, what do you got going on for this week?
Oh, I'm going to miss that next week. Oh, my.
I know.
You know what? My content just got posted. It is live on the Plays and Fade YouTube channel. My full card breakdown, both DraftKings and betting. Timestamp for your viewing pleasure that is now live. I also have a best bet video sponsored by CoolBet, which will be out later in the week. And I got brought on with Brett Apley to work at Establish the Run. And over there, I'm providing premium content on that channel. We do a premium podcast every Thursday live for premium subscribers at 6 p.m. Eastern. So check out me and Brett if you want some in-depth DraftKings analysis. They do a great job over there. So happy to be a part of that. But aside from that, a good weekend ahead. Again, all building up to UFC 300. So I'm very much looking forward to that. My full slate of bets should be posted at Gordo Gambles on Twitter on Friday. And I wish everyone the best of luck in all your DraftKings and betting endeavors. Let's make some money, guys.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to 300. I'm looking forward to next week. Atlantic City is going to be awesome. And then we got, I think, Brendan Allen, Chris Curtis coming up as well. So we have some good cards coming up. Yeah, most of my content's already out. I'll be going live Friday for some final thoughts and then Saturday for some best bet. And that's all I got for this week. All right, guys, best of luck. UFC Vegas 89. Enjoy it. Have fun. We'll talk to you soon. See you later.